What's going on, Badger Nation? Welcome to the PPC Den podcast, where this is the home of the first and longest running show all about Amazon advertising, designed to make your PPC life on Amazon a little bit easier and a little bit more profitable. We've been podcasting for so long, you might really love an organized view of all of our episodes. So for example, if you're looking for Prime Day episodes, those are organized and categorized with quick descriptions so that you can find exactly what you need when you need it to dig in deeper into all this juicy content. Today on the show, we take a look at something that is a relatively new tool. So if you're using any kind of like P&L dashboard where you're analyzing top line, you want to subtract all your fees and end up with like a profit or proceeds at the end, we're going to take a look at a new report inside Amazon called the SKU Economics Report, which does just that. It's a really cool tool. I hope you enjoy it. I talked to our good friend, Elizabeth Greene. She's an absolute blast, an absolute champ when it comes to Amazon PPC. Have a good one, and let's jump in.
I've launched campaigns and picked keywords. I've got my bids, set placements too, and bad mistakes. I've made a few. I've had my share of broad keywords, but I've gone through. We are the PPC Den, my friends, and we'll keep up the rising to the end. You two are the PPC Den. We talk about Amazon. No time for ACOS, 'cause we fix the gambits of the world.
Elizabeth, welcome back to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you. This is always fun to be here.
Yes. Elizabeth, I think what's interesting is that we're both wearing the same color shirt, unplanned,
We are.
and we both have
unplanned.
green eyes. It has to be, this is the only, I want to say, not just Amazon PPC podcast, but Amazon, not even just Amazon growth can't talk, not even an Amazon growth podcast, not even an e-commerce growth podcast where you get two people whose last names rhyme, also have green eyes. This is a rare event. So thank you all for being here and witnessing this once in a lifetime podcast. Elizabeth,
Where
how
all
did-
things come together.
it's 2024, and I will say that if there is an activity that some of the sharpest Amazon marketers do, sharpest brand owners do, it is something that I've talked about on the show before, but we talked about it like using tools. We talked about building the report yourself, which is basically a profit and loss statement for your Amazon sales. And people outside of the Amazon world or who are new to the Amazon world find it astonishing when they're like, okay, how much did I sell? Okay, great. And like, what are my costs? What's my profit? It's actually remarkably difficult to get this information.
Yeah.
So it's like it's buried in lots of different places. You'd have to piece together tons and tons of different things, or you'd have to use a third-party tool to sort of access it until a new report that just came out relatively recently. I didn't know about this until like May-ish. So it's really exciting to have this tool that we're about to look at directly inside Amazon. And I'm curious for you, being, well, I guess I'll ask you the first question. How do you define yourself? Do you primarily define yourself as like a Amazon PPC manager, Amazon marketer, Amazon growth manager? Like, what do you define yourself as?
Yeah. And so I think I would use the words like Amazon ad management because I think that, like you can use language that you feel is most applicable and nuanced, but also I think it's important to use language that's like generally understood.
Right.
So if I say, hey, we manage Amazon advertising.
Right.
Oh, okay, I get the scope of work in which you guys do.
Right.
But I think it's a really good question because I actually got that question on a call I was on the other day with a brand owner, and he was like, "Hey, look, like he was struggling himself. He's still doing self-management. Like I'm struggling to figure out, like, don't you also have to pay attention to other things outside of ad console because of the way that Amazon advertising
Right.
works and how there's a direct correlation between sales growth and Amazon ads if run correctly? And like there's so many more things that ads can touch in the context of Amazon. Like, isn't it important?" And he was basically asking, like, as an Amazon ad manager, if that is your strictly defined function, wouldn't that be a disservice to the brand if that was all that you focused on? And that's why I love conversations like this, because I told him, I said, 100% agree with you there, right? So if I was to, someone said, hey, what do you do? Amazon ad management. How do you do it? Through looking at reports like what we're going to talk about today, a holistic approach as to how Amazon advertising is affecting the business. And that's something I try and talk a lot about. There's this dynamic and push and pull, and unfortunately it doesn't leave us with a very cut and dry follow these 3 steps, because it's sort of this amalgamation, this push and pull across multiple different dynamics. But one of those dynamics that I think, unfortunately, a lot of maybe new Amazon ad managers, because you're just trying at that point just to wrap your head around the basics, is how is this affecting the business? Because business, it feeds into things like cash flow, inventory positions, the relationship of the brand with their manufacturer in terms of lead times, or maybe agreements that they have. And there's so if there is the same brand, same sales, same dynamics, but one is in a season of their business where they're just really strapped for cash flow, versus the other one maybe has some external, ways to get cash injection through other businesses, or there's maybe they have loans, or they're just in a different phase. The ad strategy for the brand that is cash flow strapped right now versus the one that has maybe really healthy cash flow, those 2 ad strategies need to be completely different and to take into account those things. And a huge part of business is, how much are we making? Because if we're not making any money, we're going to go out of business, right? Unless we get money from somewhere else. But even then, like, if we're not figuring out a way to grow it, we're just continuing this, like, burning money, really.
So it's interesting, even if the only clicks on a keyboard and clicks on a mouse that you're making are inside the ad console, in terms of the actions, understanding the overall business can be really valuable at having conversations to inform how the ads should be managed, which is
Absolutely.
a great point. And this is something that we know a lot of people, we know a lot of the same people, and almost everyone uses a third-party outside tool outside of Amazon to basically get all the Amazon fees. So, how much did I sell? What are all the Amazon fees? And there's like 40 plus fees that you can have as if you're doing Amazon FBA. All these fees, where are the fees? And then at the end of the day, like, what was my net profit from all of my activities? So I'm about to share my screen here, and we're about to talk about, this is inside Amazon. It's the SKU Economics Report. And if I read the description here, it gets SKU level aggregated reports on fees, costs, and net proceeds. Notice they do not call it profit, because theoretically it's not actually profit. Like, profit will end up on your actual, and it's also not a true P&L. Like, a true P&L is going to have, your employee costs on it and so on. This is really more accurately like net proceeds from your Amazon. Track and analyze SKU level fees, costs, and net proceeds related to your selection over a specific time to identify high cost items, streamline business strategies, and optimize profitability. So this is a really cool report. Where you find it is you go up and you hit the hamburger menu in the top left of Seller Central. You go all the way down to reports, and you may see a selling economics and fees SKU Economics Report. So this is not available in every account, I believe, just yet. At the first time I saw this was in May. I think, Elizabeth, you said that in one account you didn't see it.
Yeah, I think when I checked it, I don't think we have access. So that would be an interesting thing. If you have a secondary access to an account and you're not seeing this, then it might be something that you would want to reach out to the account owner or whoever has admin access to be able to edit permissions and say, hey, we want to help you evaluate fees and help make sense of this and plan to ad strategy. Can we get access to this report?
Right. So just sort of setting it up, they have a couple different steps, which we can just run through super fast. You have to select a marketplace or marketplaces, how you want your data organized, whether by FN, SKU, or MSKU. I've been selecting MSKU, and then you select your date range. So you can do this by month. You can say, show me last month. You can do month to date. There is a data delay. They say like 24 hours. And then down here, hey, it's free for you to add all these other boxes. So you get sales data, fees data, advertising spend data, sponsored products only. Off Amazon costs. We'll talk about that in a second. Storage fee, base rate and surcharges, fulfillment base rate and surcharges, and of course, net proceeds. You hit that, you generate your report, and then you download it. And what you have at the end is something that looks like this. So before we even talk about the 51 columns here, I guess what's your first reaction that this exists as a downloadable report from Amazon right now?
No, I think it's insanely beneficial because as we're going to go through sort of this report, as you were saying, all of this data is available in reports or APIs or somewhere in different reports. And so historically, if you wanted to get SKU level data to help with profitability, you would have to download multiple reports, push them together, and be able to do that. And I do really appreciate they added in the advertising data. I'm always a little bit interested when I hear sort of SKU level or any sort of product level ad, especially spend data aggregations. I always wonder what's included. So it is helpful to know that it's only sponsored products. I keep hoping somewhere at some point they might give us sponsored brands. You can get sponsored display. So if you have a large amount of spend in sponsored display ads, that may be something that you could download, say the advertised product report, and then add in. Unfortunately, that's not really available in sponsored brands. Any tool, to my knowledge, as of today, June 27th, 2024, there is no way to get specifically from Amazon sponsored brands product level spend. There are tools that will aggregate it, and we use tools that aggregate it, which mean, there is some sort of calculation of, okay, so these are the products that they're selling or, have the most appearance in the ads or something. And so we're just going to kind of divvy up that ad spend data based on those metrics. It's the best we have for now. And it's fine because it's the best that anybody has. If and when Amazon finally releases that data, I think it'll make our product level total costs much more accurate. It is what it is. But by far, most accounts have sponsored products as our highest spend. So, but just to be aware of the calculations. But other than that, it is, like you said, all of the above fees from every quarter and any place that you might be charged some sort of fee, including new inventory fees, which I think will be very helpful to sellers.
Absolutely. So yes, to just confirm your points that you just made, Amazon in their advertising really thinks of it in terms of ads, not necessarily products. So like a click on your ad is theoretically incompatible kind of with how we think about a click on the product. So, if you have a sponsored brand ad, it's like, oh, they clicked on the ad. Like, what if they click on the headline or the image of a sponsored brand ad and not the actual product. Amazon currently, as of right now, doesn't make the distinction. So there's 51 columns here. And essentially, if we start at the start and the end, the first couple columns you see are really basic. The first ones you simply see are the marketplace, the dates of the report, the parent ASIN, the ASIN, the FN SKU, the M SKU, and the currency code. So it tells you that. And if I go all the way to column M, it's really basic metrics so far. It's what was my average sales price, which is huge because it's actually factoring in any price fluctuations that may be caused for any number of reasons. So what was my average sales price? How many of them did I sell? What's my units sold? How many of them were returned? So if I wanted to add an extra column on here, I can get a return rate per product, which is pretty snazzy. So I can do like return rate. So that's just my units returned over my units sold. And then I can get a quick sort of snapshot of what are my most returned products and get a good pulse there. Net units sold, which of course is just my units sold minus my units returned. Sales, this is not a formatted report, so you might want to turn that into dollar signs. Sales and then net sales. So that's on one side. So they have how many columns just to talk about your revenue? They have, I added one, but they have 14 columns to talk about your revenue. And then if we jump to the end and we skip all of the fees, at the very end, we have net proceeds total. Now, net proceeds total is, of course, the revenue that you had minus all these other columns that we're going to touch on at the very. So I'm in column like AY. So it loops around the alphabet twice almost. And then it tells me my net proceeds per unit. So it's a pretty beefy report. So if you were just tracking like sales, profit, or net proceeds, you can download this pretty quick and get a good pulse. Like in this account, there was 27,000 in net proceeds for the month of May. So pretty cool. Tells you that. I can quickly see which products are profitable and which ones are unprofitable. I can see that there's one product that's making almost all of the profit for this account, and other ones have a negative profit product. So right off the bat, you can begin to have a conversation about what your most profitable products are and what your least profitable products are, which if you go and you switch up and just look at the revenue, I can see one of these products sold $10,000 worth of sales, but if I jump all the way to the end, it actually just did $348 of net proceeds. So I can see that, hey, there's some missed efficiency there. There is some more efficiency in this product that had a bunch more profit. So all of a sudden now, as a PPC manager, you have a view, you have insight into the account that you did not previously have. And this takes 1 minute to download. This is the report you're looking at. I added some coloring, but this is the report. So right off the bat, you can begin to have better conversations about what to do with these product strategies, because you can see exactly what's happening and what's going on here. So right off the bat, even if we skip all these middle columns and we just look at the revenue and the net proceeds at the end, tells you a lot, doesn't it?
It tells you a whole lot. And I think there's two particular call outs, which I'm sure we'll get to, talking about a little bit more in depth. One of them is just the relationship of sales and profits and how those two things don't always correlate. And I love the report you pulled because I think it clarifies that pretty black and white, right?
Yeah.
So potentially your bestseller may not be the product that is bringing in all of the sales to your business. And right there, in terms of focusing in on ad strategy, that's a great pivot that we often will use in our ad strategy. Now, as we go through and dissect the fees, it could be, we can talk about, maybe it is that we're maybe, what fees are contributing to that decrease in I think that'll be another fantastic way to use this report, which again, we'll dive into, but it's just right off the bat, like you're saying, this is what's my best seller, but this is my biggest profit driver. Okay, so if I was going to go in and focus my efforts, right? Because if you have a catalog that's over, say, 5, you are going to want to focus efforts somewhere in the account. It makes sense. So instead of you saying, oh, I absolutely need to make sure that 110% of my attention is going to the thing that is selling the most for me, which is not a bad place to focus, but it's not a complete picture of where to focus. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing that I think is super interesting, so we're going to get into why this is, say, net proceeds, and how that differs from, like, say, a P&L where you have, like, the actual cost of goods inputted, because that is the one data point that Amazon does not have, is how much you're paying your manufacturer for your products. And there is ways to use that. There is ways to give Amazon access to that data. There are perfectly logical reasons why a seller may not want to give Amazon access to that data, but it does actually have blank columns in this sheet.
Yeah.
So that's the other, I think, very interesting call out, and ways that even if you don't add any other data points as far as, like, your actual cost of products in here, this report is still very insightful, because you were saying that, there are some products in here that are showing negative. Well, these products are showing negative before we even enter any sort of cost of goods.
Right.
Which means there's some disconnect between how much our fees are and how much we've priced our product at.
Yeah.
So before we even get into any other parts of the conversation, we already know that there's something within our fees and there's a disconnect within our price that, because it's not like you can have negative cost of goods, right? So once we add those, we know we're going to go even further negative. So there's something within this. Again, it could be the pricing, it could be how much we're investing in advertising, could be return rates, the product's getting returned too often. So therefore, we're just kind of losing out on this product line.
Yep.
But that's a great evaluation tactic. Again, within a single data report, look at it, skim it, find the places to focus in on, and then you can get into sort of the dissection process.
Hey, y'all. So in this episode, we're talking about finding your bottom line profitability per product. We talk about finding your total ACOS per product. If you're looking for potentially a tool that can give you different date ranges so that you can sort, sift, filter inside your product's total ACOS, we inside AdBadger have a total ACOS dashboard where you can go and you can check that out. You can also see how many sales came from the SKU that the person clicked on as opposed to other SKUs, which can tell you a lot about what to advertise and what not to advertise. So if somebody's clicking on product A, but all the time they're buying a different variation, then perhaps you should try testing, launching just that variation and tracking your total ACOS along the way. So if you're interested in that, click the link in the description and you can jump in to AdBadger, the software tool. Anyway, let's jump back to the episode. I love the SKU Economics Report. Here we go. Yeah, so this is crazy. So as I look at this, I have some products that did 10,000 in sales, 9,000 in sales, 36,000 in sales, 2,000 in sales. What's crazy is I've got a product that sold $1,000 in sales that has more profit than one that did 10,000 in sales.
Yeah.
Like
totally
I've got a product that sold 20 units and did more profit than one with 362 units. So already you can begin to have conversations, I think, that you were not previously able to sort of dissect. So right off the bat, this is really good information for any Amazon PPC marketer to know. And you're absolutely right. They give you this export with cost of goods sold per unit blank. There is somewhere to enter this in so that when you export it, it'll have that number pre-calculated for you. But this is a spreadsheet. Like if I wanted to add in my cost of goods, I could easily just enter in my cost of goods and then reformat my net proceeds to incorporate that. This is incredibly easy spreadsheet work, right? So it's really fascinating. So I would say we haven't even touched on all of the fees in here. So we have our sales, our return rate, pretty interesting. And then we have net proceeds, and then net proceeds by unit, which is just your net proceeds divided by your net units sold. So it's like how much net proceeds do I make every time I sell? And for some of them, it's really high. For every time this product with 44 net units sold, every time I get a sale, I'm actually generating $20 in net proceeds, which is like pretty solid to know. Now, I think the first cost column that I want to focus on is I'm going to get rid of a lot of the inventory fee stuff. And I think it's interesting to touch on, if I hide some rows for people. Yes. You can then look at your sales on one side, your net proceeds on the other, and your sponsored products charges. So this is pretty fascinating. So this is your sponsored products charges. And I did some verification before the call. This is actually what that ASIN spent. So this is just your sponsored products, not sponsored brand, not sponsored display. But for most people, this is at least 80% of their ad spend or 70% of their ad spend. So it incorporates a lot of ad spend. And then the first thing I can do here is I can sort of do ad cost of total sales. Sometimes people don't call that total ACOS. And if I do that really fast, so I have my ad costs, how much I spent on that product, divided by the sales, turn that into a percentage. So I have my ad cost of total sales in a spreadsheet per product right here, which is pretty snazzy. So you can do this pretty nicely. Again, this is like minutes of work. This is relatively straightforward. So I can see my total ACOS on a per product basis, which is really cool. This also opens up the opportunity for you to do another column, which is like you can do like profit compared to sales and cost and ad cost. So you can run some additional columns if you wanted about how to look at your net proceeds, your profit compared to your sales, compared to your sponsored products charges. And just confirming, they do not tell you how much of your revenue came from sponsored products. They just tell you how much you spent on it. Okay. So yeah, so I love this analysis. So already just in a couple minutes, we added return rate per product. We saw our net proceeds per product. And then we added ad cost of total sales, sometimes known as TACOS, per product, which is really cool. So I can see a huge range here of everything from 0%. I mean, I'm not advertising for it. I have 147%, which I'm advertising way too much for. I have 60%. I could probably scale that back. So I have 463% total ACOS on a product. So it tells me a ton of information about now what to go optimize even further. So this is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And then one other analysis that we've done, which kind of we started off this conversation like, what are you? We're Amazon ad management. But
Yes.
again, this is not something we do routinely. There are a couple of, sort of our clients we've worked with for years that we've sort of helped gone sort of outside the bounds of scope of work a little bit to help them sort of do an analysis and to make maybe more effective decisions on the advertising. And one of those was, for some of the products where we found that they were negative. So in this case, a lot of the negative products we're seeing do have a very high total ACOS, and maybe that would be a place to optimize spend. But if you ever run across a product where you are negative and yet ad spend is not high, total ACOS is not high, well, then there are some other issues within that fee structure. And one of my favorite methods of evaluation in a lot of accounts is percentages of total. I find to be very, very helpful. And so one interesting analysis, and again, this is something, because it is all together, it is very easy for you to do, to add an additional column and say, okay, so out of all of the fees, right, if I was trying to dissect where this is going wrong in terms of a negative profit, in terms of all the fees, what fee is the highest contributor to that? So what is the highest percentage of, total fees? So we have like our fulfillment fees. And again, you want to be careful here because there's a lot of per units and then total. So you would want to look at totals here, apples to
do
apples,
some formatting like this.
Yeah, but I would look at, so is it a fulfillment? Because here's the other thing that happens very often. If you have a lot of excess inventory, and here we're getting into, kind of things that are outside the scope of a lot of things you're reading in reports, or maybe some things that unfortunately a lot of sellers don't pay attention to. Or if you're just reading a P&L and you're not really dissecting where are all of these fees going to, what is causing this in my account, and then, to try and make sense of it all. There have been times where, say, a long-term storage fee hits, right? And that's not something that typically happens every single month. It's not like that storage fee is hitting, but on occasion, that could be looming on the horizon. So if you're not paying attention to that, and that, long-term storage fee hits in the month of June, and you say, oh, this product is negative in profits, therefore everything must be fixed. That might be a scenario, if you don't know the underlying root causes, where you actually want to increase advertising to help move units because you're dealing, you actually have that excess inventory fees or long-term storage fees that are affecting your profits. So if you don't, that's why reports like this, like we keep saying, it's amazing to have this all in one view. But it really is, because in historical time, again, if you have, some sort of tool that's pulling this in and dynamically comparing date ranges of things, those things are very useful. But not every new seller has access to those things. Nor do they look at them all the time. And so this can be very helpful to, all in one view, download it in once instead of having to figure out the reports. How do I combine this? Look at all of your fees and just say, where are most of my fees going to?
Right.
Is that advertising? Does that need to be corrected? Or is it storage? Or did I not realize that, my fulfillment fees went up because, there was incorrect measurement? Or there's all kinds of things that affect all of these fees. But if you're not aware of them, and you're just saying top and bottom line, while it can be helpful, it doesn't tell you what you need to correct for or fix. Where a report like this will say, these are the things that need to be corrected and fixed. And then you have somewhere to focus and an action item instead of just saying, this product's unprofitable, kill it. It's good to understand why things are happening, because we find that typically will lead you to the best, most actionable conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well, Elizabeth, I like to have every episode give people something to do, and we've done it. Go play with your SKU Economics Report, use it, let us know what you think of it. I think it's a key thing that any Amazon PPC manager should be incorporating into their workflow as of today. Elizabeth, another thing people can do is they can go connect with you after this episode.
They can.
What's a good way for people to connect with you? What's your preferred method?
So if you actually want to get connected with me, get on a call, talk about your ads, best place is going to be the website, which is jungler.com, JUNGLR.com. If you are just saying, hey, I like what you're saying about Amazon advertising, I want to hear more, we're not looking to get directly connected, then YouTube and LinkedIn are going to be the places I put out the most content. Right on.
And it's great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, my Green Knight friend, for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good one. Until next time. Bye-bye.